Hey, happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here. Today is FU Friday, so we get to say FU to some of our favorite or less than favorite personalities in the space. And as you can tell, I'm not joined by my normal co-host Ceara, but today we have Mr. FireStorm. How you doing, bro?
Good. Glad to be here. First time on this show. You obviously visited our show a few times. I love that I'm here. Always a blast to hang out with you. So thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, man. We're going to have to bring Jimmy on next time.
Absolutely.
So
with the skills for the show.
Yeah. If you're unfamiliar with what the heck he's talking about, Dexalot does a podcast, I think once a week, right? Into the Club, it's called.
Correct. In the Club. Club being CLOB, which is a nice play on the words. I can't remember who came up with it. It wasn't me, but they did a good job. We do a Twitch show every Tuesday, and JD visited us a couple times. One of our top 5 shows each time. So, glad to have come back.
It's all because of the music. Hey, bro, just before we get too deep into it, can you give everybody, if they're not familiar with Dexalot, what is it? Why are you guys amazing?
Yes, of course. So Dexalot is a traditional style exchange. I'm sort of changing my words now. Central limit order book, as in similar to Coinbase, similar to New York Stock Exchange, running completely on a blockchain. Okay. Essentially, we bring a taste of traditional finance. And when I say taste of finance, I mean the maximum, most capital efficient mechanism to create liquidity directly on chain. We sort of view this as a middle ground between, getting people over to our side without compromising on some of the very cool stuff on a blockchain. And we're currently live on a subnet of our own, as you can imagine. And soon new things will happen. And if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Please do hit me up if you find a price that's better than Dexalot anywhere on Avalanche. And I stand by these words.
I like it. Yeah, we'll post some links both to your Twitter, to the Dexalot Twitter, and then, of course, to the Dexalot URL so that people can check you guys out and get to know you a little bit. Appreciate the heads up. Just a quick reminder to everybody, we are a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. You can tell we're live because we say dumb shit and often have technical difficulties and so on. Today, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. A lot of it has to do with scammers. And on Fridays, it's either Gary Gensler that gets the butt end of most of my discussion, or some version of scammers or rug pulls or something. So today is no different. We're going to talk a little bit about a massive phishing attack where a whale lost $24 million. Now, I actually think I know who said whale is, and I mentioned it briefly on an episode a few weeks ago. It's unfortunate. We'll talk about it a little bit more today. We're talking a little bit about Brevard County in Florida, where there's been a whole bunch of scams impersonating friends on social media. It's pretty close to where I live, so hits a little close to home. A UK woman loses her life savings. Crypto scammers drain $312,000 from Portuguese investors. We're talking about AI-powered phishing scams and deepfake videos, which is something really interesting, and among others. We've got one other one targeting MetaMask, which is probably the oldest scam in crypto, I'm pretty sure, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I know, FireStorm, you've got a ton of thoughts on this. Finally, we don't commercialize the show. We don't take payment from anybody. We don't take paid sponsorships. The only thing we do is if you send me merch, size medium, I will wear it and give you a shout out on the pod. And today we're representing swing.xyz. They're partners of ours on quite a few different protocols. They do some really cool stuff with multi-chain access and bridge aggregation and a few other things. So check them out. Without any more messing around, we will play our little video here and get freaking going. So with that, let's go. All right, we are back.
Love it, dude.
On the video.
I love this thing.
makes me want to.
Right vibe for the right day. Perfect start.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start with the crypto whale. Did you hear about this?
I think I've seen it in the news, and this was reported by Peck Shield, right? I think that's what I saw. So yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of crazy. Essentially, it was there was Ren ETH and staked ETH. That was the lion's share of what was taken out of their account. I apologize. For some reason, every Friday, our housekeeper is outside of my office during the pod. No matter how much I ask her to avoid that. But anyways,
I know a thing or two about that. It happens. Yeah.
I can, if you can hear, I apologize, but nothing I can do about it. Anyways, there was 13,000 ETH and 1.6 million plus or minus drained from the account. I think that it was facilitated via Rocket Pool somehow. I'm not entirely sure how this actually happened, but it really sucks. And as far as I understand, it was a phishing scam that got the private keys somehow. And so I think I might know who this is because I mentioned before that someone that I know quite well had lost their private keys to a LastPass exploit from years ago, and they didn't even remember they had said private keys on LastPass. And sure as shit, their account was drained. This is crazy. What I wanted to bring up about this, and the reason that we're talking about it today, F you to scammers as usual. But in this particular case, I mean, even people that have been around for a minute, you've got 24 plus million in crypto. You would think that the motivation for personal security should be pretty high at that point. And unfortunately, if you're not vigilant, shit can happen. So advice for today, be careful, obviously. And even the smartest, longest living participants are struggling in some cases. Do you know anybody? Have you ever been scammed?
I have not been scammed in a phishing way, but I have lost funds to exploits 100%. If anything, you ask me if you haven't lost something in crypto this early, you haven't yet been a real degen, you haven't yet been a real participant in the space. But if you think about this problem, this is by far the biggest problem that crypto has. Okay, and I'm not going to say crypto, Web3 has. Now, think about it this way. There's multiple aspects to this issue. One, somebody that wants to diversify their portfolio to add this asset class just doesn't know enough about security. And one thing about media is they always talk about the bad stuff. They never talk about the beautiful application that Rome Blockchain Labs may have built. They will talk about how somebody else got exploited or had a bug or somebody got phished, right? It's more dramatic.
Fear sells. Fear sells.
And the net result is the general public generally has a fear. And until we solve some of these issues, this fear holds the industry back. Yeah. Now, if you compare and contrast with Web 2, traditional finance, in reality, the centralized entities that you pay anything for or you keep your money at, this is really the only service they provide, right? You put your cash into a big bank. Yeah, it's not guaranteed that your money is not going to be gone, but there's multiple layers of defense that is supposedly making it safe. And realistically, traditional finance rails does allow reversals of assets. I think there is that curve that people need to go up to understand why your keys, your assets, and you need to be vigilant is better than the alternative. But we're not quite there yet. And as you said, even the most OG people who have meaningful amounts of assets are falling into this issue, right? I've had friends who got phished. I've got, investors I've seen who got phished. It is one of the bigger problems. There's other aspects to this whole issue as well, but we as the participants of this industry need to push our UI, our UX, our educational material, our conversion of normies into this technology. We need to do it properly, and we need to tell people how to be safe to the best that we can, right? It's obviously a shame when this amount of money gets stolen. We don't really know what it gets used for, where it goes. That is another big issue with, public blockchains, like big institutions that are heavily regulated. And JD, quite honestly, I don't even know why I'm speaking about this when you're in the room, but they are going to have a problem from a compliance perspective participating in public networks where there's bad stuff happening, right? They don't know what the regulators are going to say. They don't know if the regulators are going to deem them, you're enabling the stuff. So it's another sort of thing that holds back even institutional side, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've been banging on this drum for quite a while that I just don't see a world where the space exists without regulation. In most modern jurisdictions, we talk about that a lot. And B, with regulation is going to come some accountability on behalf of the ecosystem operator or the protocol operator to ensure consumer safety somewhere along the way. And so I think, go ahead.
This brings up a very interesting thing I just remembered. Now, I didn't talk really about my background, but just a very quick sort of background information. Been in crypto for a little while, but my background is in traditional finance, right? I spent a little over a decade across big banks and looked after, platforms that are technology platforms, but that handled enormous amounts of money. Okay. Like the entire crypto daily volume, or few weeks of worth of volume, is nothing compared to how much the FX markets trade and how much institutions have to trade on a daily basis. Now, if you think about how traditional financial services companies do this, they don't really raise their hands and say, hey, we're safe, right? There are controls in place. There are procedures in place. There are independent validation mechanisms in place. And one of those mechanisms was educating the employees of these companies through lots and lots and lots of training. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten don't get fished out training. And funny enough, and I think you're going to touch on this as well, funny enough, like it had sort of a run book of how to detect a fish, right? And that assumed a world where AI didn't exist, automated tools didn't exist. And it would tell you, it's going to be a weird domain that your email comes from. They're going to have spelling errors. They're going to have grammatical errors. They're going to apply high sales pressure tactics and high pressure sales tactics, and blah, blah. And I think, unfortunately, we're moving away from that. Like those markers are not necessarily there anymore. And it's becoming easier and easier to get fished. And you really need to be vigilant about validating these things. Anyways, before I get carried away, let me hand the reins.
No, it's good, man. It's always good to have an opinion other than mine. I think the people that listen every day are probably pretty good at predicting what I'm going to say on a lot of these topics, but it's awesome to have insight from others. So yeah, along this same line, the scams and phishing and so on, my in-laws actually just had a fairly substantial issue with something similar to this. They're in Canada though. But there's a lot of social media scams going around right now, and crypto is the method by which that they're accepting payment for a lot of these scams. There's a big one with respect to Elon Musk, that you're buying shares in SpaceX with crypto, and
I've seen
there's
many of them, man.
They're so sophisticated, and so that, to your point, I think that's what's as time goes on, as the protection measures become more and more sophisticated, so do the scammers. They have to keep up. We talk about the motivation for scamming in blockchain. And if you don't want to draw a parallel to the banking system early on, imagine Bonnie and Clyde being able to walk away with hundreds of millions and not have to get in a firefight with cops or, high-speed chases or any of that stuff, at least
exactly
in the short term.
And it's immutable. It cannot be reversed. Once it's from point A to point B, done.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a second with respect to deep fakes and so on. But just to set this one up quickly and kind of get your thoughts on it, there's been about $4.5 million of money that was siphoned off this way from about 100 different victims. So essentially what they're doing is they're trying to get the users to buy Bitcoin And what they're ending up doing is they're using Bitcoin ATMs in this county that don't actually give them anything. They take their money, it appears that it gives you Bitcoin, and it doesn't. I mean, Bitcoin ATMs have always been kind of an interesting one in my head, because I've always thought like,
that's the funniest thing of all time. It's like a meme in itself, and very popular early on. Oh, you can now withdraw Bitcoin from an ATM. But if you think about it, Bitcoin is supposed to be not physical. It's supposed to be borderless. It's supposed to be global. And you're now physically going to your Web2 experience, mimicking the experience to get something that's supposed to destroy that experience or remove that, or create a paradigm shift on that experience. It's kind of funny, but I do understand why they took off. Like, here is the one thing that us as founders and builders and whatever you want to call us, stupid people thinking that this thing is going to take off. I don't know. The audience can make the judgment, but
smart people.
Smart. Okay. One of the things that we always miss is that we have the mentality of trying to be on the bleeding edge, trying to understand where we're going towards and how we're going to get there as quickly as possible. But if you turn your head and look behind you, most of the people are not in that same category as you are. Therefore, when I go out and say, bro, distributed ledger, don't worry about a bank account, just have this piece of hardware in your, or like not even a piece of hardware, have this piece of paper that covers everything for you in your pocket, people can't get there, right? Humans by nature resist new things.
And they resist accountability.
They resist accountability for sure, and they resist new things. People who don't resist new things are the ones that, and also be optimistic, are the ones that eventually become the Elon Musks, in my opinion. So I try not to resist as much as possible, but most people do resist. So what that means is the solutions we have to create for now, while we're so early, needs to bring them somewhere in the middle and slowly moves them to the other edge of the spectrum. And that's exactly what Bitcoin ATMs were. Let's give them an experience they understand, they can see and feel, and then give them this amazing technology through that user journey. And, that's why they became successful. Like, for a very long time, there wasn't much besides Bitcoin, by the way, right? ATMs are fairly early, and then came Ethereum. I honestly think, yes, it probably is doing damage now, but before then, it did a lot for awareness. But in a meme way. If you think about it, that's a Web2 meme.
It's kind of like all PR is good PR. People are talking about Bitcoin whenever there's exploits. The public service announcement here, though, I think is, if the rate of return that's being promised to you sounds like holy crap, there's probably some outsized risk there. And I would, look very closely at that. If somebody's saying, hey, we'll give you, 30% per year on your Bitcoin or some nonsense.
Preach.
I don't
know if you've seen this. Have you seen the FTX pitch deck?
Yeah.
Guaranteed returns that are double digit, number one marker. At this point, I think the number one marker is if the returns seem extremely high and it's a promise of something that's going to happen in the future. I don't think AI has advanced that far. I still think we can't predict the exact way the world is going to evolve. That's the marker, right? Because I think the other markers of phishing attacks and other markers of scams are disappearing little by little. But the too good to be true, which plays at the greed of humans, is the main red flag that you're going to watch out for.
And greed is a mofo, man. Today we're going to say F you to greed, because greed, myself included, I've been scammed for well over 300 grand in the last 6-7 years in the space. So scammed, like I sent money to people thinking that it was for something, and like all this other crap. So, I talk about this a lot, not to point out that I'm an idiot, but rather that even somebody that's been building here for quite some time, we all make mistakes. And that's what's really important. You have to build in process and procedure into your personal management so that it's not a decision. It's just a structure that you abide by. We're going to move on quickly from that one, but it's along the same vein. So you'll have a chance to chat a little bit more about it. But another example of this in the UK, a lady lost 200 grand, which is her entire life savings. To show you how sophisticated this is, over the last couple of decades since online dating proliferated, we see a lot of catfishing and a lot of people that are getting scammed in that realm. And I've got some family members actually that have been pretty scammed that way. And these people are willing to put in the time. And this UK example is similar to my in-laws in the sense that the scam actually happened over the course of months. They're patient, they're sophisticated. Often, they're very, very good at saying what they know you need to hear, and trust gets built over time. Most people assume that a scammer is going to take off right away. They're not going to put in the work. What are your thoughts on this one? How do people protect against these?
Super important point. Unfortunately, being safe yourself is not enough, right? We all have families. Some of us have spouses. Some of us have children. Depending on who has access to what information in your life, you may think you're safe, but they may not be, right?
Yeah.
I see a lot of people write stuff on Notepad and put it on their desktop. And your computer is a work computer, personal finance computer, and a computer game computer. And your kid installs something. Like, the hygiene that needs to be maintained is, I think, separation of stuff, and people need to really figure out access control, right? People need to make sure that if they themselves are vigilant, that people around them also at least have the basics down to be vigilant. And then, of course, going into this specific story that you mentioned, very tough, bro. Again, too good to be true probably is at work, right? You think you're in paradise. You always gotta, trust but validate, I guess.
Well, and it's kind of like, this person's trying to help me. That's new. Usually people aren't helpful. It must be real if they're spending the time getting to know me, yada, yada, blah, blah. Another FU to scammers. Again, there's going to be a few more of them on the pod today. But anyways, what's also kind of worth noting about this, have you seen some of the AI deepfake videos that they can do now?
It's unbelievable. I've seen the SpaceX one that you were talking about, where you go to a YouTube page, it seems legit. It's alive, where Elon Musk is talking, and Elon Musk is one of those guys who talks weird. It's gotten better over the years, but he has this weird thing, which deepfake used to generate partially weird stuff. You can't really tell if it's real or not, but dude, deepfakes were the first wave of AI. Now we have so much more on top, but
my kids watch all these different YouTube things, and one of the things that it seems to be around all the time, I hear them listening to it all the time. There's a Trump, Biden, and Obama.
It's the best. Yes,
it's kind of ridiculous. It's not safe for work, so don't go ahead.
Don't watch it at work.
Evie, don't watch it in front of your kids, my friend. Just a shout out to Evie.
That one isn't a video. I think that's a voice deepfake type thing, right? Everything is emulated in the voices or something.
But there is some video deepfakes of the three of them that are also mind-blowingly accurate. There's another thing. There's another really cool platform. I can't remember the name of it now. Ceara knows. But anyways, there's a really cool platform that you can put your video through. As an example, we could put this video, the raw video, through this thing, and it will edit our mouths to move to a different language. So it'll automatically translate and then make my mouth look like it's moving, and it'll be in my voice.
And it will be in a different language.
In a different language that I don't know, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Google, not the visual part, but the translation part. I think Google is leading the pack because they've been looking at Translate for so long. Yeah. I was reviewing these AI tools recently on a flight. What is there to do when there's a 10-hour flight? You just learn about new shit. And I reviewed a bunch of these AI tools, and Bard was dominating, at least in the translation space. And it can speak to you in a specific dialect or slang or whatever. I mean, crazy. I'm telling you, the world is going to a direction which 99.9% of people are just not ready because they're still so old school. right?
And we've talked a lot about WorldCoin and Sam Altman, but if that's not evidence that the guy leading the pack in AI is also concerned about how to tell the difference between AI and a real human, hence
Yes.
WorldCoin and biometrics.
Yes.
I mean,
I just heard.
We should really be thinking about that.
I just heard a very, very scary statement yesterday. Somebody sent me a voice clip from a conference about education technology. And the Google representative there was saying that we have crushed Turing tests by such a large margin now that nobody knows who they're dealing with, what they're doing on the other side of the telephone. And eventually we'll be on FaceTime or whatever visual thing you use, Skype, right? You're going to call somebody, you're going to think that you're talking to your mom, when in reality your mom is chilling elsewhere and she let the AI agent handle your need for cuddling, you know?
No longer do I have to listen to my wife and kids.
There you go.
I'm just
JD AI, let it in the middle. You just enjoy the good parts.
Eventually there'll be a hologram, so they can even come into my office and it'll look like I'm sitting here, but it won't be me.
And it's funny, like people always like, you know, traditional people, I'm going to say, who are not so open to new things, have been scared about virtual reality and like goggles and living in a Ready Player One type world. This actually is scarier. Like, even if you're not in Ready Player One, you have your phone, you're calling somebody, you don't really know if that's really them, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you think about all of the positive implications of AI, I mean, it's amazing, obviously, but often we ignore some of the other challenges that this technology will bring, and scams and hacks and exploits, especially in Web3. I mean, once we have supercomputing, once we have these incredibly large language models and very performant, infrastructure. I mean, even look at GitHub Copilot as an example. I mean, it's freaking crazy what that already can do. Now, if you think of that from the other perspective, we can also build and use tools like that to try at a very fast rate all of the previous exploits, and or to try to find a new way to exploit it, where previously it had to be some human that was imagining all the potential exploit paths. In this particular case, the compute is pretty incredible. So be careful. QuantStamp obviously has put out a piece on this. The AI scams are incredibly sophisticated, whether it's deepfake or not. There's also some incredible AI scams with like chatbots and fake accounts on social medias and all this other crap. All of this to say, and this is maybe a good segue to kind of end the show today. We didn't make it to a couple of our MetaMask topics and a few others, but that's pretty standard for me. But all of this to say, guys, it's Friday. Be vigilant. FireStorm and I were talking prior to the pod, not financial advice, of course, but things are starting to feel like the winds of change might be blowing a little bit on the space, and there's some really interesting budding catalysts, I think. So let's get ready before the bull comes, because then, a lot of logic and caution goes out the window, and you have to build those principles in now. So today I say, F you scammers,
F you
deep fake AI people, stop preying on little old ladies, please. And if you put that amount of effort into something positive, you could probably make more money,
things. Yeah.
And you won't have law enforcement chasing you, and you're always looking over your shoulder. So that's the advice today. Again, quick reminder to everybody. Thanks for chiming in. It's a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We're on all the major venues: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, RSS, Twitter Live Video, Twitter Spaces, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're freaking everywhere. Wherever you like to consume podcasts, like, share, subscribe, help us get the word out. It's the only way we can, help more and more people over time. And with that, today I say to you, my friend, go FUD yourself. Thanks, brother.
Peace. Thank you so
later.
much.